When we started this series, we said that we needed to point the finger at us. We talked about the enablers in political groups and their power to destroy or nurture the system. In our human experience, we are the enablers who are accountable for the manifestations in our society. In this episode, we want to look at how we can change our world in a peaceful, healthy way. History is already full of stories of peaceful movements started by a single person that built momentum and impacted the human experience. Each person started with a simple desire and followed that with manageable steps to create change. Everyone can be a CNN hero, a Greta Thunberg, Gandhi, or Martin Luther King Jr. How could a child such as Greta impact when the vast majority of adults refuse to take a simple step to address something that they know is wrong? Is this really who we are? What makes us so different from them? We first need to understand how we got to where we currently are, and then look at the person we want to be going forward. Each of us has the capability of changing the world. Imagine that there is a pyramid. The apex represents the leader, and as we travel from the pinnacle down to the base, we realize that the base supports the entire structure. Yet we assume that the apex has the most power. Weaken the base and the system will collapse. We have created complacency and project the blame and responsibility onto others. We hide from our accountability. We talked about this in our series, The Lies We Tell Ourselves. We need to accept where we currently are in responsibility before we can change. The first step is to admit our shortcomings, biases, and decide to keep them contained without judgment, rather than continuing to nurture them. On April 30th, 1977, a small group of mothers sat silently in the Plaza de Mayo, Buenos Aires, before the presidential palace of Jorge Rafael Videla, a US-backed military dictator. Videla's regime was famous for the countless disappearances of the children of these mothers. History showed the government murdered their children indiscriminately, disposed of, and some of the bodies were even taken on military airplanes and dropped into the ocean. The mothers of the Playa de Mayo were petitioning for the alive reappearance of their disappeared children. They grew to be a successful democratic movement because they helped create many new regulations about human rights that were not respected or did not even exist before their action. They helped raise awareness of the problem of having corrupt governments. Their initial stand changed Argentina into a country that became known for its human rights. These mothers were not brilliant strategists or famous people. They were ordinary folks who lost their children while the world stood by. Today, We still hear of children put in cages and can no longer find their parents, and the world still stands by. Did any other country stand up and say that it was not right? People usually do not take action because they fear retaliation or harm to themselves or loved ones. We talked about this in our series, Something is Not Right with Spirituality. In it, our monkey mind can drive us to distress. We can also project that fear into consciousness through our DNA. Not changing our default response poisons our consciousness. In the series on karma, we talked about passing it down through our generation. Should fear be a deciding factor, let us accept that without making any judgments. We are who we are at this moment in time. It is who we can be in the future that is important. It is the legacy we want to leave for our generation. But most of all, it is the respect that we want to have for ourselves. There is a saying that the most exact science is observation. We know that a mother will wake up at night a moment before her child starts to cry. A person can have premonitions about another family member. Friends pick up on the distress of another. Whether we call it mirror neurons or extrasensory perception, it exists. Practice this connection to become the person you want to be. Use your thoughts and intentions to make the world a better place. All it requires is courage and commitment. Every day, for a brief moment, hack into that universal communication system of mirror neurons. You already know of the things that trigger you positively and negatively. Play with both triggers. It is not about what they are, but how you perceive them to be. Think of someone who triggers you negatively. Reflect on that person. Wish them a peaceful, joyful day in your mind and project your blessings through your mirror neurons. Choose another positive thought and send it to a loved one, a workmate, or a stranger, and watch after a time how the world begins to appear more wonderful and precious. Ultimately, you will become more peaceful. We should end with this quotation from a Hindu saint. When there is kindness in the heart, there is service in action. When there is service in action, there is harmony in the community. When there is harmony in the community, there is unity in the nation. When there is unity in the nation, there is peace on earth.